Happy Halloween week, folks, and welcome to episode 413 of #AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, October 27, 2021. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week. I'm actually going to be at Dynamite tonight in Boston. Very much looking forward to it. RJ and myself were at the second ever Dynamite with Alexis 2 years ago, almost exactly, back in early October, obviously. That's when Dynamite debuted in 2019. We got tickets to this show. RJ purchased them. He purchased them for us like in early 2020. Like we're talking January, February, we were planning on going. The show was in April of last year. Obviously, the pandemic hit, got delayed until I think the summer or maybe October of last year. And obviously, when you first hear that, this is like when the pandemic first broke, like literally within a week. They had sent out an email saying, hey, no show, because we're thinking, oh, maybe it'll be over by mid-April, and how dumb are we? How dumb were we for thinking that? But it got pushed back to October. It got pushed back to April of earlier this year. It got pushed to September of this year, that being last month, and then delayed again to today. So we're looking forward to it. I think the timing is perfect because I love Halloween. They're calling it a Halloween show. They're not like theming it as a Halloween show. They haven't outright said that, but I think the Elite or the Dark Order may have made a mention of that last week on Dynamite or a couple of days ago on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. I fucking love Halloween. You guys know that. I've actually done at least 1 or 2 episodes of this very show on Halloween in years past. So not this year. This is not a Halloween-themed edition. I've answered all the questions before, like, oh, what's my favorite horror movie or Halloween movie, favorite candy, all that sort of stuff. So be sure to check it out in years past editions of the Halloween episodes of #AskGSM. But you guys do have questions for me here today from the Twitter machine. If you want to send in a question, you could do so by tweeting me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. So let's get right into it, guys. At SupersonicX1991 from Twitter, their first question was, what are your thoughts on the whole Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair incident from over the weekend? Is Charlotte Flair pushing to leave WWE? I don't know how much depth I went into this with in my SmackDown audio review from Saturday because I recorded that Saturday morning. That might have been before I read the report from Fightful that there was more to that segment than what met the eye. That there was more to that segment that happened backstage and the animosity between Becky and Charlotte, also involving Sonya. Vince was involved. It was a whole ordeal, obviously, and we're still hearing about it all these days later, and it's been almost a week. It was a fucking mess. The segment was terrible. With or without the actual drama, the segment itself was awful. But I mentioned the drama because that probably played a part in why it was so bad. Tossing around the belts like they were fucking Pokemon cards. The whole idea of it was dumb. I've said that before, the whole swapping of the championships. You guys have asked me about it. I've talked about it here and other places, how fucking dumb it is to be swapping championships. And then you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, why wouldn't they just keep the titles on the same shows or, not even draft the champions? There's a lot of ways to fix the problem. WWE's absolutely at fault here. It's not the fans for complaining, oh, what would you do? Would you keep the Raw women's title on SmackDown? No, I either wouldn't draft the fucking champion or vacate the championship upon that champion going to the opposite show. And if that's not fair, because the U.S. champion and the world champion and the IC champion, they can all switch shows without dropping their championship. If you don't think that's fair, then don't do brand-specific titles. There should have never been brand-specific titles to fucking begin with. I'm thinking like in the brand split the first time around. That's really what I grew up on. I don't want a Divas title back, but you can have a World Women's Championship, and then kind of like what AEW was doing, a TBS Championship. They have the AEW World Women's title, the TBS. I mean, what's the distinction exactly? There's not. They're kind of like equals. I mean, they're calling it a secondary championship because they don't have a brand split. But you could do something similar to that with the women. Get rid of the fucking tag titles. They're completely pointless. We haven't seen them on the show in weeks. We've seen Rhea and Nikki in backstage segments, but that's about it. Get rid of those pointless titles. Incorporate not even a secondary, and not even, you don't even need a second. I'm talking about like we need a second women's title. We already have that with the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship. So just get rid of the tag titles completely anyway. That's irrelevant to your question. But just to have 2 separate titles, call them different things. Same thing with the tag titles. Back in the day, it was no real distinction aside from the name. No real difference in value aside from the World Tag Team titles being around longer, dating back to the 70s and 80s. but we had the World Tag Team Championships on Raw and the WWE Tag Team Championships on SmackDown. And that wasn't a short-lived thing. That was the case for about 6 or 7 years. The WWE Tag Team titles were exclusive to SmackDown from 2002 up until they merged the titles in early 2009 at WrestleMania 25. Or just merge the fucking tag titles. I would not merge the women's titles because I think there's enough women to have 2 different titles on the 2 different shows. There's not enough tag teams, though, I don't think, to have 2 sets of tag titles. And they've had the 2 sets of tag titles for 5 years now, so if it hasn't happened yet, I don't expect it to. The tag divisions were fucking terrible 5 years ago, too. They really were not that much better than they are right now. So this is not a new issue. WWE's always had an issue with their tag team divisions and splitting them up on separate shows. And even when they did have a lot of teams, a lot of them just weren't very good, or I didn't give a fuck about, or a lot of people just didn't care about. So anyway, I know I'm going on a rant about the whole swapping of the titles thing, but the segment itself sucked. Throwing the championships around. Charlotte claims that she accidentally dropped the title. Other people believe that she did it on purpose. Becky throwing the championship. That part of the segment with Charlotte dropping the belt was edited out of the SmackDown replay. It was just an absolute mess. Sonya trying to get it back on track. It was fucking terrible. The teases of like a title unification match, which I don't want to see anyway, but that went nowhere unless they go back to it in time for Survivor Series, which it doesn't seem like they will. Sasha being out there, she played her role well, but I really don't want to see Charlotte and Sasha currently. I guess it makes sense, but I would rather see the Shotzi's or the Shaynas or whoever else is still on SmackDown going for that championship instead. The whole thing sucked. As far as Charlotte Flair, is she pushing to leave WWE? How much heat does she actually have? WWE, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong a lot of times before, I don't think they were looking for any reason to fire Charlotte. I don't think they will fire Charlotte. I think they see her as too much of a priority to let go of her, even if she is a problem to deal with, which I don't believe completely. Maybe some of the stuff, there might be drama surrounding it, but I mean, again, I don't work there. I don't know her behind the scenes. I don't work in the women's division, so to speak, so there might be a lot of heat on Charlotte from other women. This is like the first real incident I've heard in a very long time, if ever, about Charlotte. Again, I don't know the whole dirt sheet situations. I don't know. I don't have any sources in that respect. But even just talking to her myself, she seems like a really sweet woman. I really don't see, I mean, maybe I could see why she would say, oh, I want to be made to look good in this title swapping segment, which is dumb because Charlotte is always made to look strong. But beyond that, it's not like she doesn't put other people over. I mean, she's put a lot of people over the years. The Rhea Ripley program was a complete waste of time because it never really gave Rhea her one win over Charlotte. But is that Charlotte's fault? Is that WWE's fault? I tend to think that's WWE's fault. Because when Charlotte has had to do the honors before for several people, she has. I mean, she's gotten beaten by Nikki Ash on Raw for the Raw Women's Championship. She lost to Becky God knows how many times years ago before Becky really got big. And part of that was because Charlotte put her over so many times in late 2018. She's helped put Ronda Rousey over, albeit not pinned, but she did put over Ronda Rousey. A lot of different situations where Charlotte has lost to other women. So I don't think it's a case where she's like the Triple H circa 2002, where she's campaigning to go over these women and she's having 9-month-long title runs. What was the actual last lengthy run that Charlotte had with any championship in WWE? Honestly, I mean, she was just the Raw Women's Champion, but she only held the championship since SummerSlam. She was only champion for 2 months. Before that, for a real lengthy title reign, I mean, she was NXT Women's Champion last year again for 2 months. You would have to go all the way back to like 2017, 2018 for a lengthy Charlotte Flair title run. I don't think she's pushing to leave. I don't think WWE's going to let go of her. I don't think she's going anywhere. I know Andrade's in AEW. He has an issue with the company because he obviously left on his own terms. They fired her father, or he requested to be released, depending on the story that you believe. I don't think she's going anywhere. I don't think she wants to go anywhere. She's making, I'm sure, far too good money in WWE to leave. Would she be a top star in AEW? Sure, but I don't know. I just don't see AEW being a good fit for her. I mean, she doesn't obviously have to wrestle. She could do whatever the hell she wants. She's done some acting. I think she got, cast in some movie. I forgot what it was. Last year that I think is going to be filming soon if it hasn't already filmed. I talked to her about it a couple months ago. I forgot what it was. I think it was, it was Walking Tall, wasn't it? The remake of Walking Tall with The Rock, the original one. That's pretty cool that she's in that. Yeah, I don't see her leaving. I hear all of this, and I just think that she's too big of a star, and she's too important to that company for them to let her go and for her to leave. And even, I mean, this was before all of this happened, but when I spoke to her in June, and again, She might be lying. She might be putting on a facade or whatever, but I can kind of tell, hearing from how people speak about certain things, if they're being genuine or not. She sounded genuine when she told me that WWE was her home, that she's happy for Andrade, being happy in another company, doing his thing over there, blah, blah, blah. But, herself, it's great that she's doing her own thing in WWE. She has been successful. She's not being buried by any means. They got drama within the women's division among these women for whatever reason. But beyond that, I think this will blow over at some point. I don't see her leaving. I could be eating crow in a matter of months, and she could be the next one to leave WWE. But I feel like AEW, to go really anywhere but WWE for Charlotte just feels weird to me. She feels like a WWE superstar. She was born and bred in WWE, not literally, but as far as like coming up in the business and all this other stuff, she got her start at the Performance Center. She is one of WWE's greatest creations of the modern era as far as like building her up from the ground up, having no prior experience anywhere else, including on the indies or any other major organization. Obviously, part of that is due to the fact that she's Ric Flair's daughter, but it's not like she's being pushed just because she's Ric Flair's daughter. Charlotte is great, and people can hate on Charlotte all they want, but in the ring, even on the mic most of the time, she is very, very good. And she's helped put over a lot of people. She's done a lot of great things, and main eventing WrestleMania, headlining other pay-per-views, winning every championship 10 times over, the tag titles, winning every championship imaginable. She just hasn't won, the women's Money in the Bank? Is that like the only accolade eluding her at this point? And the Queen's Crown, which is probably coming next year. So I don't know. I think Charlotte is perfectly fine as far as her status in the company. I don't think they're looking to fire her. I don't think she's looking to leave. But again, I could be wrong. Their second question, what are your thoughts on Xavier Woods and Zelena Vega winning their respective tournaments at Crown Jewel? A lot of people are excited for Woods to realize his boyhood dream. However, I'm interested in seeing Vega take the Raw Women's Championship from Becky Lynch. I thought it was good. I loved Xavier winning. I was not expecting that. I told you guys here 3 weeks ago, if Xavier even got put in the tournament, even got put into it, I would have been shocked. And I was. When Xavier popped up in the bracket, I'm thinking, wow, that's fucking shocking. But they're probably just putting him to shut him up, and they're going to eliminate him in the first round, maybe the second round. He gets past the first round. I'm like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Gets past the second round. I'm like, holy shit. They're actually going forward with him in the finals. And I'm like, okay, but he's facing Finn Balor, and clearly they want to have Balor bounce back from the loss at Extreme Rules, which he needs to. But at the same time, though, it's like, all right, I would love to see Woods win, because this is never going to happen again. I doubt they would ever go back to this. It's not like I saw people saying, oh, it's too soon. Have him lose and then tell the story next year. They're not going to have this story next year. They don't have the long-term storytelling that a lot of other companies do. You're putting way too much fucking credit in this company for thinking they would go back to Woods running for King of the Ring. They may not even hold the tournament next year, let alone in 2 years or 5 years or whatever. We may never have another tournament again, because the women's was a fucking disaster as far as how it was booked and the matches and all this other shit. So, the men's was pretty good overall, but the women's was a disaster. They may never do it again. And I agree with a lot of the people who said, oh, they never actually explained his story on TV, never let him cut a meaningful promo about it, which I completely agree with. But at the same time, though, he's never going to get this opportunity again. Just let him fucking win it. Just let him win it. And they did, which I thought was great. So I was really happy with Woods winning. I'm not even looking at it as, oh, is it actually going to elevate him? I think I talked about that on WrestleRant Radio last week. That doesn't even really bother me. If they don't elevate him, that doesn't bother me. Because first of all, the King of the Ring has been such a fucking waste for like the better part of the past decade or so that it doesn't even really matter if it elevates him or not. Because it's such a pointless tournament in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, it means a lot to him, sentimentally and whatever. I think that's awesome, which is why I wanted to see him win. But I don't want to see him win at this point to be taken to the next level. I wanted Shayna to win the Queen's Crown tournament to take her to that next level and get her back in title contention, which she still could be even without the tournament win. That's kind of what I saw more for the women's tournament. I would have rather seen a Shayna win it or a Toni Storm or a Liv Morgan to really get elevated from it. The King, especially since it's a new crown and it's completely new, it has no bad taste to it aside from what they just did recently. They kind of ruined it right from the get-go. The King of the Ring has so much bad, has such a stench attached to it that I really just don't care who was to win it. So I think Woods winning was awesome. I really don't care if Woods goes on to win another championship. The fact that he even won that at all, I think is awesome. Though I would capitalize on that opportunity, however, and have him go, if not just even win, a mid-card championship at some point, and have him win the maybe Intercontinental Championship from whoever's holding it at that point down the road. I think that'd be awesome if he can get his own real singles accolade. People saying, oh, it would be awesome if all the New Day were world champions, and I don't think they would induct them without Xavier winning. I'm sorry, I love Xavier Woods. The guy's not a world champion. He's not. I mean, I think the guy in the ring is great. I'm a big Xavier Woods fan. Kofi's not even really a world champion, but the Kofi thing was a little different because he just connects with the audience in a different way, and he's been around for so long. Woods has been with the company for a long time as well, but a lot of people just don't connect with Xavier the same way they do with Kofi. That's why I think King of the Ring was perfect for Xavier, because that was his world championship. I have never, ever once said, and I've been a fan of Xavier Woods since his Consequences Creed days in TNA 15 years ago. But I have never looked at the guy and said to myself, this is a guy that should be world champion. There are at least 15 other people in this company that I would rather see a world championship against, or see as world champion again or for the first time, than Xavier Woods. So I don't see that happening. I don't think it needs to happen. Maybe as a one-off match on SmackDown, him and Roman Reigns might be fun. I mean, if they wanted to do a pay-per-view program and they built him up the right way, I would be fine with it. But he's such a goof as a character that it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So was Kofi, and then they had him go for Bobby Lashley's WWE title. So anything can happen. But anyway, I'm fine with Woods winning. I think that's awesome. Vega winning, of her and Doudrop in the finals, she made more sense because she fits that queen gimmick more. But the problem is that there shouldn't even be a queen gimmick. There shouldn't be the whole scepter and the crown. If Woods wants to have fun with it because it's a joke anyway, whatever. With the women's, why do you have to have a queen on one show and a king on the other? It's so fucking lazy. Vega cut the same promo on Monday that she's been cutting for 3 weeks now about, the Cleopatras, and she went in and out of the accent. To give her the credit she deserves, I think she plays the role well. I want to see Vega do well in WWE. I like Zelena Vega. I have always said, though, I feel like she is miscast as a wrestler. I know she probably wanted to get back in the ring. She probably pushed for that. But that's not her strong suit. There are so many better women on both brands, including Doudrop, that I would rather see get pushed and are better in the ring and as an overall package as a superstar than Zelena Vega. I think her strong mic skills make her perfect for the managerial role, which is why she and Andrade together were money. And they went ahead and broke them up, which was fucking stupid, last year. And Andrade's gone, and Zelena got fired, and now she's back. And she was a loser for months, and now we're expected to care about her. I don't know. As far as her going for the Raw Women's Championship, I have below zero interest in wanting to see that, to be completely honest with you. Vega got her shot. I feel like they gave her a chance last year at the Raw Women's Championship, and that was kind of like a test to see how well she could do on her own. I don't want to say she failed, but it was a failure. It didn't work. I mean, she had back-to-back matches with Asuka. She faced her at Night of Champions or Clash of Champions, whatever. They had a rematch the next night on Raw, I think, or 8 days later, whatever it was. She lost both times, but neither match was overly memorable. She didn't go in there and embarrass herself, but nothing she showed in either match and honestly, any match I've ever seen from Vega. And it's not that she hasn't been given the chance, because that was her chance. But nothing in those matches impressed me to the point to say to myself, wow, I really want to see more of Vega in the title picture. There is a reason why they immediately went back to her being a jobber right before they fired her last year. Because she's just not that good in the ring. I mean, she's good enough. But, I mean, she might be a superstar compared to the women of 10 years ago. But compared to the women they have right now on both brands and in NXT, I would much rather see a Tegan Nox get focused on, or a Shotzi Blackheart, or a Doudrop, or a Rhea Ripley. Even Nikki Ash, the fucking superhero shit, is terrible. But at least she's a good enough wrestler to where that's like, I don't know, she's competent enough on her own where I feel like she's good enough where it's okay. Vega, I've never seen one memorable match from her in her entire career. Every other woman I could say at least one match I've seen, if not multiple, where I'm like, wow, that was a great match. Not a single Vega match where NXT, Raw, SmackDown doesn't matter, even in other companies. So I think her getting the gimmick shit down is, I guess, gives her something to do. But the problem is that where do you go with it, though? Do you put her in the title picture? I have zero interest in wanting to see her against Bianca again, who's already beaten her a bunch of times. Her and Becky's a heel anyway, so why should I care? Why should I want to see those two go at it for the championship? She's already beaten Doudrop a few times. Well, Vega and Rhea Ripley, that seems like a complete mismatch. Rhea would fucking mop the floor with her. I think it's cool to give her something to do, and really as a reward, I guess, for coming back, maybe? I don't know, but I would rather see the Queen's Crown be elevated, elevate that woman, whoever won it. I think Shayna could have won it, not done the dumb Queen scepter shit, and then moved on to becoming champion. With Vega, she's right back in the same spot she was before. She's winning more matches, which is nice, I guess, as far as she's concerned. But I don't really care about her any more than I did before, because I don't really see it going anywhere. I don't see Vega ever winning the championship, and if she does, it's not the worst thing in the world. Dana Brooke is fucking abysmal. So, I would rather take Vega as champion over a Dana Brooke or a Tamina, who is also just terrible. But it's not that much better. I would much rather see, again, on the Raw side of things, Rhea hold the championship again for an extended period of time. Becky, Bianca, Tegan. That's 4 or 5 names right off the bat that I would rather see in that role than Zelena Vega. Even Doudrop, if they ditch the dumb dancing shit, then I think she could be a real threat in that division as well and be a real benefit and a real, help for the Raw Women's division. At Iwagu91 from Twitter, their first question was, with Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston happening, did you know that Kingston was Danielson's first opponent after briefly being released by WWE in 2010? P.S. In that match, the crowd threw ties instead of streamers and had Danielson as a nod to the Nexus invasion. I did not know that. I feel like I've heard that before, but I did not know that Bryan Danielson's first match back on the Indies was with Eddie Kingston. I knew they were close, and I didn't watch the promo they had. I think it was after Dynamite or Rampage last week. I think it was after Dynamite. They aired it during the commercial of Rhodes to the Top. I stopped watching Rhodes to the Top. I just don't care. But they aired it during the commercial to the show, and I didn't see it. People were tweeting about it. I'll have to go out of my way to watch it. But that's cool. That's cool that they have history, and I'm looking forward to the match. I'm going to be there for that match because I don't think there's a Rampage taping later this week. I think it's going to be taped with Dynamite tonight. Rampage has been live for the last couple of weeks. They're going back to being taped, I think, starting this week. So we're going to be in Boston for Dynamite. I didn't see on the schedule they're doing a Rampage taping at any point this weekend. I think they're taping it back-to-back, which is pretty cool. So we're going to be seeing that match in person. I assume it kicks off the show. That's awesome. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I didn't know that they faced off in the indie scene before Danielson went back to WWE. Quick side story before we move forward as far as that stuff goes. First of all, the necktie thing is great. I've always wanted a Stop the Necktie t-shirt. They made a t-shirt that said Stop the Necktie Violence after Danielson got released. It was like a big meme for a while. I thought it was hilarious. He went back to WWE in the summer of 2010, but they were still selling the shirts at indie shows. And I looked all over the place for it, and I ended up finding one. I think at the same indie show, I ended up meeting Bryan Danielson, Bryan, whatever, right after he went back to WWE. Because when he went back to WWE, they allowed him to finish out his indie bookings because he'd already kind of set up a lot of stuff. They set that show up that I went to go meet him as far back as August of 2010. And the show was in October. He went back at SummerSlam. So there was like a month-and-a-half stretch where he was doing indie shows while with WWE. And when I met him, he had just so happened, like literally a week or two earlier, to have won the United States Championship. Didn't have it with him, and I still have the picture. I hate how I look in the picture, but he was fucking awesome. Couldn't have been cooler. And I think that was his last indie show before he went back to WWE full-time. I know for a fact it was a main event match, non-title obviously, with Shelton Benjamin, which was a great match. They had a match in WWE, I think, years later that wasn't as good. It was kind of cut for time and shit, but they had a great match at that Northeast Wrestling show, at that Northeast Wrestling show in the main event. It was really good, and I got to meet Danielson that night, so quick side story for you. And I think I bought the Necktie Violence t-shirt that same night, and I think I still have it. I'm sure I do. I wouldn't have thrown that out. I think I have it somewhere. But yeah, we're going back 11 years. That's a long time. Let's see, his next question. Your thoughts on next year's WrestleMania once again being a 2-night event? I love it. I honestly have no issue with that at all. I was there last year, and I loved it. I mean, I know people... Listen, I absolutely understand the argument of people saying, oh, it means more to do it on one night. And the thing is, too, is that I would rather see it as a 2-night show because I know for a fact if it's one night, then it's going to be like a 7-hour show. That's what I don't like about it. And it also gives me something to look forward to by going back-to-back nights. I understand paying 2 tickets, and it's a lot of money. They don't cut the price down for the 2 tickets. I totally understand that aspect of it as well. I would, honestly, I'm not even kidding. Like, I would rather go to 2 nights of WrestleMania, maybe not for the same price back-to-back. I'm not sitting ringside, so it really doesn't bother me all that much. I would rather go to 2 Manias back-to-back and have it be shorter than sit there for the same, for 1 ticket and have it be a 7-hour show. because it just ruins the experience, and by the end, the match is I just don't care. I just want to go home. WrestleMania 35 was a great example of that. 33 wasn't bad at all. 33 ended around midnight, but it wasn't as bad. Getting out of Florida, or Orlando rather, wasn't that bad. Getting out of Newark at 35, and I've told the story a million times, was a fucking nightmare. The worst experience I have ever had leaving an arena for a wrestling show, or really anything ever. Fucking terrible. So this year wasn't bad at all because it was a 2-night show. It was back in Florida. I walked back to my hotel with Alexis, so we didn't have to take any, transit or whatever. There were no Ubers and shit, but I mean, that's to be expected. Same thing with SummerSlam. I was so close to the arena as far as where my hotel was. I didn't have an issue walking back. But yeah, I like the fact that Mania is 2 nights because if it's not going to be a clean, crisp, quick 3 to 4 hour show on one night, which is what AEW does. AEW only does 4 pay-per-views a year. They should start earlier if they're going to end around midnight Eastern time, but whatever. Other than that, I think it's okay. They don't go for a 7-hour show. I mean, they've had long shows in the past, and they got to cut some shit down. My issue with the AEW shows before being so long was that they had matches go like 30 minutes that had no business being 30 minutes. WWE doesn't have 30-minute matches that go beyond their time. They actually have matches that go too short. It's just they try to fit like literally 15 matches on a one show, on a one WrestleMania card, which is way too fucking much. So again, I'm of the mindset, I love the 2-night WrestleMania. I think it's cool. Wrestle Kingdom has done it for years. So for people to say, oh, like, why is it okay for Wrestle Kingdom to do it but not WWE? That's my thing. If Wrestle Kingdom can do it and no one would complain about it, then why is WWE any different? Realistically, yes, it should be one night with 8 matches, but they like to get everyone on the card. If you want to do that shit, then just make it 2 nights. And it spreads out the fun. It gives me something to look forward to on both nights and gives more people opportunities. It's like the whole 2 world titles thing. I talked about this with RJ recently. It's a total matter of preference. Some people like him only like 1 world championship. But at the same time, I like 2 world titles and a brand split because if you're going to have the massive roster that you do, there's a lot of people that are never going to become world champion that probably should be. AEW is 1 world champion right now, and I don't know. So far, it's worked out fine, but I could see them reaching a point where it's like, all right, we got to give more people main event opportunities here, and we just can't with the roster that we have. Right now, it's not an issue for AEW. It might become one at some point. For WWE, I feel like with a brand split, it doesn't work. AEW, they don't have a brand split, so it's okay. WWE does. I think they should with the amount of programming they have. They have far more programming than AEW does. They do. I mean, if AEW had a 3-hour show and a 2-hour Rampage, a 3-hour Dynamite, then obviously I feel like they would need to, but they don't. Maybe at some point they'll need some sort of a brand split because they have a lot of people under contract now. They're signing more people by the fucking week. I don't know. For now, I think I'm okay with 1 world champion in AEW, 2 world titles in WWE, as well as 1 night for Double or Nothing and 2 nights for WrestleMania. Just based on not just the roster size, but as the amount of programming these companies have. WWE has far more of it, despite having the around same amount of people that AEW does at this point. At Iwagu91's next question here, do you see Wardlow turning on MJF at Full Gear as an ironic echo to MJF doing the same to Cody 2 years back or next year? That's a great question. I mean, we kind of figured Wardlow might turn on MJF at Full Gear, but I didn't think about the fact that MJF turned on Cody 2 years ago. So it would be kind of playing off of that. No, I don't want to see it at this point. I like the fact they're teasing it. I have no issues with them teasing it. My problem is, because like last year they teased it, but it didn't go anywhere. That's the thing. Like, it didn't go anywhere. That's the good thing about it, though. It didn't need to go anywhere. It shouldn't have gone anywhere. That's the thing. I think teasing it and then not delivering it is fine because you are planting the seeds for something that will eventually happen. I have no doubt Wardlow will break away from MJF and become a breakout babyface at some point. No doubt about it whatsoever. It's not a matter of them teasing it and they don't eventually do it. They will do it. It's a matter of when and not if. I would not do it right now, though. I feel like it's still, I hate to say too soon because it's been 2 years, but I feel like next year might be the time. He's gradually building up momentum. Is Wardlow getting more matches, getting more reps? He's not quite there yet, but he's close. I would wait. I don't know if I would wait until MJF is world champion. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't do it right now is the thing. So maybe, Full Gear is possible. I feel like you can get some more mileage out of these two. If they were to do it, I don't know if I would complain depending on how it's executed. Personally, if I'm Tony Khan, I'm waiting until at least 2022. maybe around this time next year, before then, maybe around the summer, depending on what MJF's trajectory is and what he's got going on, if he's already a world champion or not. Probably not. But maybe. We don't know. We'll see. MJF should and probably will be the one to beat Hangman for that AEW World Championship. And maybe Wardlow helps him win it. And then after MJF kind of fulfills his prophecy or his need for Wardlow, he'll ditch him to the side, and then Wardlow's like, hey, no, fuck you, I'm going to turn on you first. And that's when the feud kicks off. So definitely possible. I don't know if you would give Wardlow the championship, though. That's the thing. Probably not, but we'll see. At Reborn again from Twitter, John Ritland from the YouTube machine. Check out a show, Real Honesty, with John Ritland. Does great content. Love John. His first question was, so the season premiere of Raw led off with a long promo segment. Wasn't that innovative of them? In all seriousness, though, is there any chance WWE changes up this format and starts their shows with a match more often? I hope so, man. I hope so. The season premiere, despite the new faces, felt a lot like the same old shit from Raw. I like the new faces, but the problem isn't really, oh, this person is so overexposed on Raw, they need more opportunities on SmackDown. Maybe for some people. The overall issue with Raw is the fucking formula of the show. Like, they had, maybe not a dozen, but they had a handful of matches that went 2 minutes on Monday. How can anyone give a fuck if the match is 2 minutes long? I mean, there's matches on Dynamite that are 2 minutes long or a minute long, but they're intended to be squashes. When you get competitive matches for 2 or 5 minutes, who the fuck is supposed to care? Even Dynamite does that too when we get a 5-minute Ruby Soho Penelope Ford match. Who is going to give a shit? I mean, probably not a lot of people to begin with, but a 5-minute match isn't really going to do a whole lot for you, so I don't like that. The format of the show is just way too formulaic and produced, and it's, especially compared to a lot of the other shows, and SmackDown and NXT are not perfect, but they are far more bearable, in my opinion, than Raw. Far more bearable. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, for starters, starting off with a match would be far more ideal. WWE loves to open their shows with the promos. When it's necessary, sure, but like when it starts with like what we got on Monday, when everyone's interrupting each other, there are other ways to establish that and do that without starting off with a long-winded segment that accomplishes what exactly we expected it to from the get-go. And it's just a waste of time. Like the Becky and Bianca segment I enjoyed, but it went on for far too long and it led to the result that we all figured it would lead to. So why take 10 minutes when you could do a 2-minute thing? You know what I mean? So yeah, they got to switch up the format. I don't see them doing it just because it's a new era. It's always a new fucking era with this show. And nothing ever fucking changes. It's just the people they bring in, which is nice, and it helps, but the show itself is just almost unbearable. His next question, so with the WWE pay-per-view schedule for 2002 out, what are your thoughts? The increased amount of stadium shows and a two-night Mania for the third year in a row seem like bold moves. I already talked about the two-night Mania. I think it's a great idea. Honestly, like, I know Mania this year had 40,000 in it? I think they said 50, but I think it was closer to 40 or 35 or something. They call it a sellout, even though I don't think it was. That was a pandemic show. I still think with the way that WWE is, the amount of money they make off of WrestleMania, I mean, AT&T Stadium is a totally different beast than fucking Tampa Bay Stadium, the Buccaneers Stadium in Tampa. Because AT&T Stadium fits 100,000 people. They're not getting 100,000 people in there for 2 nights. I can guarantee you that right now. But with the way the wrestling fans are and the way that WWE works, I have no doubt, no question, I don't think, that they can get a decent amount of people in there for both nights. I don't think it would be bad. I mean, unless the card is completely fucking terrible and the product is just even worse than it is right now. I don't think, for whatever reason, WrestleMania is always the hot ticket. They always get a great amount of people in there, no matter how bad the product is. It's always, a very successful weekend for them financially. I do not see a scenario where they underperform significantly for either night. I think it's going to be fine. So I love the fact that there's a 2-night WrestleMania. Other takeaways from the pay-per-view schedule, I love the fact there's no May pay-per-view, or no March pay-per-view rather. I think that's great. If there's no Elimination Chamber, you will not hear a single complaint out of May. I think Elimination Chamber, I'm the only person that really believes this, I think, is a complete waste of a fucking pay-per-view. People will say, get rid of all the gimmick pay-per-views except Money in the Bank and Elimination Chamber. Money in the Bank I'm fine with. The pay-per-view is almost always great. I'm fine with not doing the Money in the Bank matches at WrestleMania. They have the Battle Royals now and shit. So I'm fine with not doing the ladder matches at WrestleMania, especially if there's going to be 2 of them for the men and the women. Just do a whole pay-per-view surrounding that. But the Elimination Chamber match has literally seen the champion retain like 7 out of 10 times in the last decade, probably way more than that. It's happened far more often than it should, and it's just way too predictable. You're like, oh, what's the big deal with that? Because the whole point of the Elimination Chamber is that the odds are stacked against them. So if the odds are stacked against them every year and they always overcome the odds, it's like a 1-6 odd or whatever the fuck it is, and they win every time, then where's the real drama there? Where's the unpredictability? Where's the excitement? So get rid of Elimination Chamber. I will not shed a single tear over that pay-per-view being abolished. It was a complete waste to begin with, because that's never really been a great pay-per-view anyway. So I'm glad that's no longer a thing, seemingly. They're doing Saudi shows, very likely in February and October. I mean, I guess they could do Hell in a Cell at one of the pay-per-views they didn't give a name to, but I really hope not, because it's such a fucking waste. Same thing with Extreme Rules. Oh my God, it's so bad. Both of them. Terrible. Just get rid of it. I like the increased amount of Saturday shows. I think that's great. I know Sunday is the way that it's always been, but I don't know. I've always liked the Saturday shows more. AEW has done them before. NXT used to do it with the takeovers. I love the Saturday shows personally. That's just me. So I like that. I liked... I obviously am very, very happy with the fact that they're bringing 2 shows to the Northeast next year. They're bringing Survivor Series back to Boston, which will give them a chance to rectify their wrong from 9 years ago by the time that event happens with Survivor Series. Survivor Series 2013 is still one of the absolute worst dogshit pay-per-views I have ever seen in this company's history. And maybe if you watch it back, you don't feel the same way, but at that time, in that moment, it was a fucking awful show. Going back and watching it still gives me PTSD. But it was one of those shows where it's interesting because I was in college at the time, and I had just started at college, and it was in my freshman year. I was in the Boston area, and I could have gone to the show. I kind of wanted to go, but at the same time, it didn't work out well timing-wise, because the way the show was structured was that it was the Sunday after I left campus to go home. So it's not like I was already on campus and I can go and then come back or whatever. It just didn't really work out well that way. So we couldn't go. I couldn't go, and it worked out well because the show was so fucking bad. I'm like, wow, I'm glad my first pay-per-view was not that one, because that was awful. That was terrible. So yeah, they're going back to Boston for Survivor Series next year. I love that. I love the fact that they are doing a pay-per-view in Providence, which is like an hour from me in May in the Marceau territory. I love that. I'm looking forward to being there for that. SummerSlam is in Nashville, which is random, but, that's cool. The amount of stadium shows they have, hey, if they think they can get away with doing stadium shows, that's cool. I mean, Money in the Bank, SummerSlam was a success, so if Money in the Bank can bring in a decent crowd in Vegas, that's awesome. I think that's super cool. What else? The September show might be a UK pay-per-view that reportedly that would be fucking sexy, if so. I would love to see that. Their first major overseas pay-per-view in 30 years since SummerSlam 92. SummerSlam will not be in England, but if it's going to be in, the UK in September, whatever September show that is, I'm all for that. I think that'd be super cool. And that was about it. No December pay-per-view because they're probably planning on doing day 1 again in early January. So I think there's a lot of positive takeaways. I love the lineup. They're going to be in Chicago for what? What was the pay-per-view? Whatever their June pay-per-view was, the weekend of my birthday. So I don't know. I'm a big fan of everything they're doing right now as far as a pay-per-view lineup in 2022. It has a lot of promise as far as where they're going selfishly for me. The days they're doing it on and the stadium shows, I have a lot of optimism for their pay-per-view schedule next year. As long as they get rid of Elimination Chamber, Hell in a Cell, and Extreme Rules, then I'm even more content because those pay-per-views are completely fucking pointless. At E13A, we'll close. Oh, no, I'm sorry. John has one more question here. Boy, the Orlando crowd sure loved Cody, didn't they? So much that they booed him out of the building whenever he got in any offense against Malachi Black. Isn't it time for Cody to just admit a lot of fans don't care for him and switch heel? Yeah, absolutely. The Cody thing is just not working. He wants to think, oh, maybe if we do a redemption story, more people will get behind me. It's not going to fucking work. And the thing is, then Cody's awesome. I love Cody, but his character just right now is not interesting at all. From the QT feud, which was fucking just abysmal, to the Malachi feud has been fine, and I'm glad Malachi won the first 2 matches. But I'm just thinking, I don't know. Cody's character right now is just completely bland, and he's bounced around from feud to feud like a million times, and it's hard to carry. He leaves and he comes back, and just so inconsistent right now. So I would turn him heel. He's also a better heel than he is a babyface, I think, and he's a great babyface. But right now, people aren't cheering him like a babyface, so I wouldn't, I don't know, I would just turn him heel, but he doesn't want to, I guess. He doesn't want to turn heel. Well, tough shit, buddy. If you want to be on TV and you want to have any success as a character on the show, do what's best for the show and turn fucking heel. Amazing. I just don't get it. So you can always go back to being a babyface within a year. Just go heel for a little while. That's the only thing. So yeah, Cody as a babyface right now is just terrible because it's not working. It's not clicking. People, it's a New York thing. I don't know about that because they were in fucking Orlando and they booed the shit out of him on Saturday. So I don't know. Maybe it's because of who they're putting him against, but even the QT feud was just stupid. It was stupid. Like they put him against QT too because QT can get good heat, but it's like, I don't know. I didn't really care to cheer Cody a lot for that because I just don't. I mean, him beating a go-go was dumb too. So a lot of bad booking decisions with Cody this year. I think a lot of it has to do with himself because if it was Tony Khan's call, he probably would have turned him heel a while ago, seeing the writing on the wall and the boos that he's getting. But Cody is so adamant about not turning heel, and he's one of the EVPs that he'll get his way like a fucking baby. But I really think he should turn heel, and I think it'd be the best thing for the show and for his character because if not, he's just gonna become their version of Roman Reigns, and you don't want that. Like the original Roman Reigns. I'm not talking current tribal chief Roman Reigns. I'm talking the big dog Roman Reigns circa 5 years ago when he just got booed out of the building and the company didn't want to turn him heel. They just dealt with it, and it never went away. Surprise, surprise. At E138, final two questions here. Thoughts on NXT was the first one, and thoughts on CM Punk was the second one. We'll start with NXT. I loved Halloween Havoc last night on an unrelated note. I mean, not a related note, but you're not talking about like the last night's show. I'm talking about like, I assume you're talking about the brand itself. I enjoyed Halloween Havoc a lot last night. The overall brand so far, I think we did a whole video about it. Like I titled a video about it recently here for hashtag about, is NXT 2.0 exceeding expectations? It's not awful. It's just not what it used to be, and it lost a lot of its luster. Like there's a lot of things on the show right now I just don't really care about. I'm hoping Halloween Havoc can kind of be like a turning point as far as that stuff goes, but, the abundance of vignettes and the coming soon and introducing way too many people at one time. I've heard there's people that have debuted that I already forgot about, to be completely honest with you. And some of these people are just not TV ready. It is literally FCW on fucking television, is what NXT 2.0 is right now. I mean, even the original NXT, when they first started putting it wasn't even on television. It was on Hulu and the WWE Network. First on Hulu and then the network. There were people that weren't ready, that weren't TV ready, but it was developmental, so you had to put them on TV or put them on the show. But there were enough seasoned veterans to make the show bearable and to work with those people and make them better and stuff. I feel like the rookies far outweigh the seasoned people right now. They far outweigh the rookies and whatever. I mean, the rookies far outweigh the people they already had on the show, who they're now moving away from, which I don't like at all. And the shows just aren't, I feel like they're worse off for it. Not a fan of it. But it's not completely awful. There are a lot of people in NXT I think have a lot of potential. I love, the Diamond Mine stuff I think is great. You got Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes. I'm a big fan of both of them. Mandy Rhodes, Toxic Attraction stuff I enjoy. Persia Pirotta I think is very good from what I've seen so far. Her and Indy Hartwell are a great team. Yeah, I don't know. It's not the brand that it once was. And it makes me sad knowing what it's kind of descended into. Because the NXT of maybe 2 years ago, maybe not last year, but even what we were getting last year on this time in NXT was better than what we're getting right now. I would get the standard formula NXT, what people were calling were boring or not exciting, over what we're getting right now, which just is kind of just there. And it'll go back to what it was, I think, at some point, like as far as how they're booking it when Triple H maybe comes back. It sounds like he's not there right now. Maybe they'll go back to that knowing that this isn't working and the ratings are in the fucking toilet, or put it back on Peacock or the network or whatever, Hulu. I don't know. It's just, it's interesting. I'm not a big fan of the current direction of NXT, but at the very least, I did enjoy last night's show, so we'll see where they go with it from there. CM Punk, I'm loving his stuff right now. He doesn't have a clear direction. I really want to see him settle into a feud. The problem with what they're doing with Punk right now, I mean, I think it's great he's working with all these people. Daniel Garcia, he worked with Matt Sydal, and now Bobby Fish tonight, which I'm super fucking excited for, making his in-ring debut on Dynamite, and I'm going to be there for it. Fuck yeah. It was his birthday last night, by the way, so happy birthday to Punk. Yesterday, that is. My one nitpick of Punk right now, and I think he's having very good matches. He's cutting great promos. The crowds are still eating him up. He looks genuinely happy, which makes me happy as a big fan of his. The only nitpick of his run so far is that, again, he doesn't have a solid direction as far as, like, a feud. And giving him wins to build him up and to give him a title shot eventually is fine, but I think you should also have a set opponent in mind for Full Gear. They probably do on the leaked card. Spoiler alert. It said Wardlow against Punk, which seems incredibly fucking random. Because Punk has had no run-ins with the Pinnacle at all. Maybe it starts tonight, but Full Gear's in like 2 weeks. So putting Punk and Wardlow together on a whim just doesn't seem smart to me at all. I would not do that. So I don't know who you would put him against. I mean, Ricky Starks seemed to make sense, but Starks hasn't really wrestled. Maybe his neck is acting up again, and that's why we haven't seen a lot of Starks in the ring recently. If they don't want to have him lose, then you got to have someone lose at some point. Punk has got to have a high-profile opponent for the Full Gear show. Wardlow is good. They have better options. Someone like Ricky Starks would make sense. I mean, the guy's got to lose at some point. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look at the lineup and who they have and who's not doing anything right now and what heels they have and shit like that. I feel like they have a lot more baby faces than they do. Like Miro, I guess, would make sense, but I don't really want to see Miro go in there and take a loss from Punk after just losing the TNT title. I'd rather see Miro be built back up or go to the main event scene or something. I don't know. They got to get this guy some direction, put him in a real feud with someone. The Team Taz stuff was fun, but it lasted all of 2 weeks, and he's been doing just nothing since. I mean, he's been wrestling and winning matches, which is good, and all the matches are good, but he doesn't have a set direction. And if he said I'm racking up wins to go after the World Championship, but he hasn't said that, I don't think. He's just kind of going out there and they're announcing him for random matches. So, as long as they can improve on that. Otherwise, I'm loving Punk in AEW. The fact that he's even back at all in wrestling, I think is amazing. He's been a great get for them. I'm enjoying the reactions and the matches. It's been, honestly, like a dream come true to see him back in wrestling and thriving and doing awesome stuff and having a real run to end his career with. I think is fantastic. So, get him a program, and the guy is as good as gold. That's what I'll say about that. And that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of #AskGSM edition 413 for October 27, 2021. Appreciate you guys checking out the show per usual. Thank you so much. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop your question on that post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Ton of new content going up right now here on the channel. If you're not already subscribed, what the hell are you waiting for? We got interviews going up like every day for the last week and a half. In the last couple of days alone, we got a Skylar Gray interview coming up too, either today or tomorrow. I got a Jeff Jarrett interview coming up either today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, if not Friday. Those two are still to come, but in the last week alone, we've had Dangerous Danny Davis, legendary referee Dangerous Danny Davis. We had the promoter of the Wrestling Classic, Nick Massey, very good guy. Talked to Terry Runnels, WWE Women's Wrestling legend, on Sunday. Talked to Adam Baum, a.k.a. Brian Clark, on Saturday that went up. Indy Hartwell, NXT superstar, of course. Rey Mysterio, that interview went up on Monday. Loved that one. Last week we also had, Sasha Banks, Roman Reigns went up a week or two ago. That was a lot of fun. Carmelo Hayes, the new NXT North American champion. Elliot Taylor, the man behind the AEW entrance music for Bryan Danielson. His girlfriend, like I said, Skylar Gray, coming up either today or tomorrow here on the channel. So there's a lot of interviews going, and there's still more that I haven't, released yet. I did one with QT Marshall the other day, Booker T, Pinky and the Brain, which sounds incredibly random, but it was a lot of fun to do. Those are all going up at some point within the next week, and then more scheduled beyond that as well. So it's a very busy time here on the channel right now with all the reviews and the content, the interviews, and you're not going to want to miss it. So subscribe and hit that bell button to be notified whenever a new video goes up, and maybe some live reaction videos too, because I'll be at Dynamite tonight. So I might be able to take some live reaction videos. My iPhone storage is fucking terrible, so maybe not. But keep an eye out for that. That's a possibility as well. Have an awesome one, guys. Have a very scary, spooky, and safe Halloween. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.